Microcasting for your city, Talkapolis. This week's show is brought to you by Nashville Violins. Check them out at nashvilleviolins.com. All of your instrument needs will be handled right here, 292-5196. You are watching Music Business Week. Our guests today are Barry Ladd and Barry McLeod. Howdy, everybody. I'm Greta Gaines, your host right here at Music Business Week. We have the two Barrys, Barry and Barry. Makes it easy for me. We got some stuff to talk about, gentlemen. The CMA nominations came out yesterday. I'm interested to know from you guys, do award shows really matter? Don't all talk at once.
Okay. Well, yeah, they matter to the artist manager, they matter to the artist, they matter to their fans, they matter to the sponsors, they matter to the record label, they probably matter to the promoters. Do they matter to you or I? Probably not.
Interesting. What do you think, Barry?
I think it's still just a popularity contest, especially in country music. We have to have it. You know, we have to. We need that promotion of country music because, you know, we have so many people saying country music is not the same anymore, which it's not. It's going to change like every other genre of music, but you know, we still have to have that promotion of your George Straits and your Brad Paisleys and your Keith Urbans and your Carrie Underwoods, because these are the artists that are still holding country music together.
Okay, so the CMA Awards are being voted on by members of that academy? Is that who's voting on this and choosing these artists? When you say it's a popularity contest, I'm almost more in favor of the shows, maybe like the MTV Music Awards or something, when the fans vote, then at least, you know, they're texting, and that's just a straight up popularity contest and the people are involved. But it is the Country Music Association or somebody who's voting.
Well, it's their members.
Their
members,
members,
the members
okay.
of the CMA. But it's like the Grammys. It's all very much politicking. You know, you vote for my artist, I'll vote for yours. I mean, I'm sure that Barry has, the same as I have, a lot of horror stories of, well, you're not going to win this year because we gave our vote to somebody else. And we will not mention names. But yeah, I agree that if it could be just the fans voting, that's fine. But the problem is you get that stacked as well. If you've got a fan club that's really active, then they're going to be burning the cable. If you've got somebody who is, let's say, for an Horizon Award, where it's a new artist who doesn't necessarily have their infrastructure yet, then you may lose out. I mean, there was the famous case of many years ago of Johnny Rodriguez being voted new artist. I don't think it was the CMAs. I think it may have been
the Grammys, or
no, the ACMs. I think it was, but he'd already had like 4 #1 hits. And
well, that's like Shelby Lynn, remember, at the Grammys, who won Best New Artist.
But you know why that was? And I actually asked about that. It's because she was in a new genre. And I actually asked the question, well, okay, if Merle Haggard decided he wanted to record a heavy metal album,
or a children's album,
or whatever, yeah, would it be treated as a new artist? And they said yes. And I said, well, that's crazy.
That is kind of odd.
But Johnny Rodriguez was actually voted 2 years running Best New Artist, by which point he'd had, I think, 6 #1 records and about 8 records on the charts, you know, which all made a nonsense of it.
It's so funny. I mean, even our show, Emerging Artists, here at Talkapolis, you know, we'll have artists on who've been doing this for 20 years. So you haven't heard of them, so we put them in emerging artists. But that's where it gets kind of tricky, because it's hard to know kind of where to put people. But the CMA Awards are fairly standard. You're looking at the same 10 people probably who are going to be up for those big awards this year.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And we all know who they are.
Oh yeah, you can almost pre-guess it. I think the one that's always amusing is going to be either Group of the Year, where you see somebody who hasn't had a record out in ages, but does have a good infrastructure, I mean, the Bellamy brothers, bless their heart, you see them nominated, or at least in that category, without necessarily having had a big hit, but they're very popular.
And they do 200 dates a year.
Absolutely.
Still.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you think they're relevant, or are we saturated with these awards? Do you
they're
watch
relevant to a degree.
Right. And do you think the industry does a good job of celebrating achievements, or do you think it's falling behind? I personally feel like there's too many award shows. I kind of can't keep up with them. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely too much. It's worn out its welcome, just like we were talking about American Idol season 126.
Right.
You know, and just today, you know, American Idol winners. Back in the day when American Idol first came out, you could be second, third, fourth, or fifth in American Idol and have a great career.
Yeah.
It's like Survivor.
And now it's not so.
Who cares?
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked with several talent agencies from East to West Coast, and they tell me the American Idol winner horror stories that, you know, they come in and they place second or seventh or whatever, and they're wanting this amount per show, but they don't even have an album out.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
nobody is buying the talent.
And American Idol's not the only show. I mean, you have The Voice, and you have other
That's
America's
right.
Got Talent. So the whole talent show thing, I think, is it's kind of over.
Right.
I hope it's over.
Well, yeah, I think that obviously people like Kelly Pickler, who didn't win, Jennifer Hudson, who didn't win, are better known than the ones who did win. Apart from, say, 3 or 4 artists, can anyone name the winners for each of the series? And apart from Carrie Underwood,
Clay Aiken.
no,
Clay
Clay
Aiken.
didn't win.
Oh, okay. So show
But
you how much I watch American Idol.
Clay was back in the day when Ruben
That's
was
right.
out and Clay came out. But did you know that and Kelly Clarkson,
Clarkson, yeah.
Yeah,
Clay Aiken sold more records than both of those put together.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Right.
But what are they doing now? And the thing that a lot of talent agencies are telling me is they have no substance. There's
Well,
no
I mean, I
substance
can
to
tell
it.
you, again, I sound like I'm 105, but when I came up, you played clubs, you practiced, you woodshedded, you went out and toured with other artists. By the time you got on a stage, a national stage, you'd done hundreds of
Right.
shows.
Right.
And you might do that for 10 years before you ever got your record deal.
right.
Heck yeah. And so you have this whole bedrock of authenticity.
Right.
And you know about stuff.
Right.
But there's one other element that often gets ignored, and that's the shrinking of the number of record labels. Now, when people like Josh Grayson, he was placed, what, 7th, 8th, whatever. He went to Lyric Street. Lyric Street is no more. A couple of the artists went to the Disney-based recording labels that are no more in Nashville. It was almost like country was the outlet for all of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't rock. It wasn't, I suppose it was pop to a degree, but it certainly wasn't jazz, and it wasn't particularly R&B. It was country that seemed to be the home. And as the labels here have shrunk, so the amount of airplay they can get has shrunk.
Right.
And so therefore, the demand for them has diminished.
Yeah.
But again, I come back to how many people can remember the winners.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's just been a whole platform and what I kind of a lottery system in a way. But I feel like we've been saturated with it. So what is a good measure of success in the music business world now?
Butts on seats.
Butts on seats. Let's talk about this
Fans
concept.
in the stands.
Butts on seats. Fans in the stands.
That's it. Hard ticket sales. It's always been, you know, you can do free shows until they come out the wazoo.
Yeah.
Anyone can do that. You and I can go out there and sing 2 songs to people who basically are coming in for nothing.
Yeah, oh, I do it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Thank
when
you.
you're talking about hard ticket sales,
Yeah.
that's the mark. I mean, you know, is a promoter going to make money from you? Have you got enough fan base that comes out to see you? And as a result, do you sell enough records
Yeah.
to make, I mean, it really is the old numbers game.
Right. Well, and how much is radio an important part of that?
Not as much as it once was. You know, satellite radio, which could have been an enormous player in this, missed the boat.
Really? How did they miss the boat?
Well, they had the point when they first came out with XM and with Sirius. Terrestrial radio was nervous, very nervous, because here you had a situation where you had all these channels that you could run. Here were the local radio stations that were owned by Clear Channel or Cumulus, who were being told what they can play. And here was the opportunity to break new artists, to do everything possible. But they were too busy infighting, to the point where they merged. You now just have one company, and that's it.
Yeah. Wow. How the touring part of it is your specialty. We were talking about this earlier. There is a place for opening bands. Explain to us a little bit about how important it is to get in with a good booking agent and to be a person who's willing to go and take those opening slots. And how does it work? How do you get paid as an opener generally?
It is a very important spot. A lot of the talent agencies that you're going to sign with from East to West Coast, the headliner is actually going to pay their opener, and they actually, a lot of times they have to supply their own opening band.
But if I go and my booking agent puts me in an opening slot, would that headlining person, even if they don't know me and wasn't booked by me, do they still pay me?
It varies.
Okay.
It varies, but you know, the thing is this, things are just so hard today that I look at it like any opportunity that we get, we have to be very positive about it.
Maximize
and
it.
we have to make it work for ourselves. And this all goes down to the biggest thing that I preach about is self-promotion. It's self-promotion. Especially if you live in a country-dominated town like Nashville, Tennessee, and you are another genre. You have to self-promote because you have so many strikes against you already. You know, Nashville, supporting Nashville is a nightmare if you are in any other kind of genre other than country. And then even in the country genre, it is so just overpopulated that my biggest pet peeve is, how can some of these artists that I really respect write such a great song and then not promote themselves? You know, I mean, because we live in a different era today. We don't do the 45 record off the album and promote it on the radio. Everything is YouTube and Facebook and Reverb Nation and downloads. It's downloads now, not 45s.
Yeah.
Single downloads.
Right.
You know?
Right, but everybody and their brother is online promoting themselves. Don't you think that people get saturated? I mean, that must even be hard to cut through promotionally on the internet.
Here's what I've found, and as the self-proclaimed guru of self-promotion and encouraging others to do so, what I find is we have hip-hop artists here in Nashville. We have rap artists here in Nashville. We have R&B and we have soul and jazz here in Nashville. And we have a spoken word movement that is making, you know, rapidly up the ladder. But everybody, they work in their cliques and in their circles, okay? When you work in a clique, you become comfortable. There's safety in that clique. And when you become comfortable in what you're doing, it's death. When you become comfortable as an artist, you know, and you were safe in this little cocoon of your friends, it's death. Any great artist will tell you, you have to break out to other genres. You have to network as a whole to become a bigger team, because basically you are competing against country. And country is country strong here. It's politically, monetarily strong here. And if you have all these other little cliques, like little amoebas floating around, it's the power in numbers philosophy. Until everybody gets together, stops hating on each other and backstabbing each other, and come together as one love.
Yes.
In all these genres, anything is going to change until that happens.
But it is politics.
It is politics. Actually, before we go on to politics, I think we should go on to the politics of who our sponsor is today.
Yes, let's talk about our sponsor.
Our
Nashville
sponsor,
Violins,
and that's
yes.
Nashville Violins. And we've got to say hi to Dave out there from Nashville Violins. And we hope that this morning you're not feeling too highly strong. Sorry.
Fiddling
Sorry
around
about
too
that.
much?
Yeah. But no, they're cool people. You've got to go down to Nashville Violins because, well, you can rent, you can get private instruction. They'll even restore your stringed instruments. So, hey, that's where I go.
And they're specialists at what they do too. They're not, they're not great at a lot of things. They're fantastic at one.
Yes.
And that's the way it should be.
In many states all around.
And they don't fiddle around. They get on with it.
Get on with it. You can fiddle around a little until you find the right,
Get the hook.
instrument.
But, you know, hey, coming back to... That's enough for you, Dave. But coming back to other genres here, I mean, one of the things that people often forget is that country is actually a latter-day boy to Nashville. Long before there was country here, there was blues, there was R&B, there was jazz. In fact, there were two very good CDs put out, Night Train to Nashville. Michael Gray from the Country Music Hall of Fame put them out a few years ago. One of them, I believe, won a Grammy. And there are some fabulous stuff. People like Bobby Hebb, who did Sunny, recorded here. A lot of really good early doo-wop was here. I think it's just going full circle. I think people have said, okay, the country we're getting in Nashville is not necessarily the country that we really want to listen to. So, hey, what else can you give us? And that's why certain other genres, you mentioned spoken word, jazz, R&B, Americana especially, which is going back to what country was. You know, if people like Hank Williams came along now, he couldn't get a label deal.
I was saying that the other day, that Janis Joplin today could probably
she wouldn't
not
really
get a
have the
record deal.
look.
And that's the
She'd
thing.
have
And
to,
that
like, do
that's
something
part
with
of the
that
machine.
hair.
That's right. That's
I
You're
know.
not cute enough.
I know.
Right.
But
And-
that's a problem.
But you know, people like Hank Williams is pure Americana. You listen to Willie Nelson, he's Americana. In his day, he was country because that's what country was. As it became more absorbed with pop and rock, which is a natural or unnatural progression. So we're going to see that move more and more. I think like anything, there will be a backlash.
What's your favorite of the genres here in town right now?
Oh, wow.
What's your favorite? While you think.
Well, you know, as somebody who manages artists in three distinct genres, Jimmy Bowen in Americana, Tisa Miller in jazz, and the Pine Needles, who are on the West Coast in jam bands. All three of those, I think, there's an honesty about them which country doesn't seem to have now. Country had an honesty. You know, what was it Harlan Howard said? 3 chords and the truth?
Well, it had an honesty when you were talking about an experience of people who came from a place in the country when they really came from the country.
That's right.
So if you grew up in a suburb and you grew up listening to Reba McEntire, I mean, you've been removed enough from, you know, the experience of actually coming from what people were singing about, you know, when they got to be country artists. I don't know about the spoken word thing, though. I would have to say that would probably be I didn't even know that was a genre, but to me, the spoken word thing, it sounds like they're making it up as they go along.
No. Have you ever heard cowboy poetry?
Yes, I've heard some cowboy poetry out in Wyoming.
Listen to some of the people that came out about 10 years ago on Warner Western. People who were associated with Michael Martin Murphey, who is one of my big heroes.
Right.
You will hear something that really goes back to the honesty of what happened on the range.
Right.
And again, it's this honesty. Do you remember, Barry and I are old enough to know about the talking narrations that went on, people like Red Sovine, Teddy Bear, songs like that that told stories. That's what country music was about, telling a story.
I know, but are you telling a story with no music whatsoever?
Oh, I mean, you'll have a sort of guitar playing or whatever in the background.
Well, you know, look at the beatniks back in the beatnik era.
Absolutely.
That was spoken word.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And spoken word's just like anything else. We have good and bad. You know, I mean, I love R&B and soul in this town, but you know, I'm watching Unsung the other night, and Eddie Levert's talking about R&B is the bastard child.
Yeah.
And it is the bastard child. And R&B and soul in Nashville especially does not make any money. You know, and it's changing. I mean, it's not just changing here, it's changing everywhere.
There's a new appetite for it.
There is. And you know, it's like anybody coming into these things today, you've got to be able to change with the times. You know, for the longest time, Nashville was looking for the next George Strait. Well, George Strait didn't become George Strait the way that people happen to make it today.
Right.
You know, George Strait put in his true dues.
Right.
You know,
we were talking about that earlier.
And he stayed on top for 20-some years.
Right.
But the fact is that you know, country music needs a new George Strait, but it's not going to come the way that he came.
Right. I think one of the reasons Jamie Johnson connected so much in country music is because that wasn't his first rodeo. You know, he went through a few incarnations, and you get your record deal, and you get dropped, and then maybe sometimes it'll just kind of burn down to the essence of the thing, and you'll get an opportunity to say, wait, there's this. I'm going to go a little deeper. All of this has made me stronger.
Yeah,
Right,
it's 10 years to an overnight
done?
success.
Yeah, but what's Jamie done now? His new album, he's gone back to the songs of Hank Cochran. There is never a truer songwriter than Hank Cochran.
Right. Yeah. Got to keep it real.
You know,
Roll
he's
the
got
dice.
you. I mean, that's an emotion
Well,
that everyone can relate to.
Look at Darius Rucker. I love Hootie and the Blowfish. Everybody loved Hootie and the Blowfish.
I didn't, but
You know, they were a huge college band, and they made a lot of money and a lot of promotion out of doing the college things like Dave Matthews did as well. But would it been so easy for Darius Rucker to come into country had there been no Hootie and the Blowfish?
Oh, I don't think so.
And the answer to that is
It would have been impossible.
It would have been impossible.
And honestly, not to take anything away from Darius Rucker, but it is a political move upon Nashville because they needed a Darius Rucker for country music, be it a, you know, just like we're looking for a George Strait, we need a Charlie Pride.
That's right.
And that is the reality.
But there's something else as well, not just another black artist, which, yes, is woefully overdue, no question. I mean, if they could break a black female artist, which they've tried so many times and failed miserably.
Nashville has not opened the floodgate for black country artists, and I meet a lot of them, and I love their heart. And you know, and unfortunately, the reality is you've got 2 strikes against you right off the bat.
Well, you know, when they put Charlie out on his first single, they didn't even put a photograph out to the radio stations.
Isn't that interesting? I miss some of that anonymity, like the fact that you don't really know what. I love Steve Miller Band growing up, but you didn't really ever know what Steve Miller looked like. It was always some great graphic on the front of his album, but I mean,
that goes back to the mystery we talked about before.
That's right, the mystery.
There is no mystery now.
Yeah.
But there's been this attempt to cross over pop artists into country for a little while now. Most of the times it falls flat, like Jessica Simpson, they tried. Julianne Hough, they've tried. And you know, Kelly Clarkson, they've tried to a degree, and of course she's managed by Reba's husband. I don't think that's particularly helped her in Nashville.
Right.
They've tried it a lot of times. It worked years ago when you had obviously Conway Twitty, who was a pop singer that they brought over to country.
What about Crystal Gayle? She was
Crystal's always been on the edge. You know, unlike Loretta, you know, who is definitely defined as country, Crystal Gayle was always that pop thing. The same as, to a certain degree, Lynn Anderson. I think the pop charts at that point were very receptive of a country artist who didn't twang.
Yes, I know what you're saying.
That's why Crystal Gale has had those hits, Lynn Anderson, and actually we should say something about Joe South passing yesterday.
Yes.
Joe South, who wrote Games People Play and Rose Garden. Sad loss to the writing community.
Rose Garden's one of my favorite songs. Guys, it's been great talking to you today. Thank you so much for being here on Music Business Week. We got lots more to talk about. You'll join us again.
Oh, sure.
Thanks again to Nashville Violins. I'm Greta Gaines. You've been watching Music Business Week right here at Talkapolis. Microcasting for your city. Talkapolis.